Hey guys, it's that time of year. It's almost Halloween. I'm enjoying some festivities. I'm using my favorite seasonal mug and having a little bit of fun. Now, for this holiday season, if you want to up your photo skill, you want to take better photos, then these 6 tips are really going to help you out. Let's get into it. All right, the first thing we need to talk about is white balance. Most cameras have built into them auto settings. You want to try and get off of the auto, letting the camera think for you, and get into some of the other controls. Now there is some presets like sun, cloudy, fluorescent, tungsten, and you can go to those presets and it'll help control your white balance within those settings. If you want a finer tuned version of a white balance and better control, in my opinion, and that's going into the temperature ranges in Kelvin. Now, most cameras have the ability to set by temperature a number versus an automatic setting. Now, the Kelvin ranges from like 1,000, which is like a candlelight, up to 15,000, which is like the brightest blue sky. Most times though, for photography, we're dealing between the 3,000, which is an orangey color, to your 5,000s, which is a bluer toned. For your scenes, just go in, set your temp. Now, if you're using the LCD on the back, you can see how your color's changing. If you're using studio strobing, most times they tell you the Kelvin numbers, so you can dial that in. But setting your white balance manually makes a big difference. So 3,000, you're warm toned, I'm kind of almost like a pumpkin, versus 5,000-ish, I'm about 5,600 here, and you can see it's a lot bluer toned. So setting your white balance is crucial. Okay, we've got our white balance set. Now the next thing we want to do is look at the exposure before we click the shutter. We want to make sure we're exposed properly. Simply looking at the back of your LCD screen is not the greatest guide to your exposure. It's not totally accurate. I use the Nikon D800 and sometimes it'll say that my highlight's blown, but in fact it's not. Now, a lot of cameras have little indicators that'll tell you whether you're clipping your highlights. It doesn't tend to tell you in the blacks, but it tends to in the highlights. Now one way is this way, using this, and these are called zebra stripes or marching ants. So wherever you're seeing the marching ants or the zebra stripes, you can see that supposedly there's no detail there in the white, it's just pure white. You've lost all the detail. You've clipped it, so you need to dial your exposure down a bit. Now, other cameras, like my Nikon D800 here, it will have a flashing whatever is blown out. So you can see here on the back of the camera that most of that sky is blown out, meaning there's no detail in that piece of sky. It's just pure white. So I need to dial the exposure back down a bit. Now, also, a little more accurate for your exposure is a feature called Histogram. Most cameras have them built in. It's a little block graph that is representative of your lighting. So let's have a little deeper look at what a histogram is.
The little box here is the histogram. Now on the far left hand side, that represents your blacks, the middle, your midtones, and the far right is your whites. Now my histogram is a little more unusual looking, only because I only have like 3 colors in here, so it's not giving you a normal representation of like smooth rolling hills. I have 2 big spikes, one for the pure white and one for the edging, which is more of a black. But you can see when I change my exposure, how the histogram changes. If that tall pillar on the right gets to the edge, it basically means there's no details left in the white. I've overexposed and there's no detail there to play with anymore, and I can't recover it. If I go the other way, you can see the blacks moving across, and there you go. I've killed the blacks now. There's no detail in the deep shadows. I basically crushed it. So you can see how your histogram changes depending on your exposure, so it is a very good guide to go with to make sure that you have not killed your blacks or clipped your whites with no detail. That is your histogram.
You can see how white balance really affects the look of the image. Now we're going to get into one of my most hated, dreaded, ranty type topics, and that is horizons. And if you've seen videos before, I have mentioned this, but one of my biggest pet peeves is this. Look at that horizon. I cannot stand a crooked horizon. It looks like that ship's going to fall right off the page in the background there. Just straighten your horizons. It makes a world of difference. Trust me, it looks so much better when your horizons are straight. Look at the difference between these two. So much better with a straight horizon. So that is my first point with horizon. Now, another thing you want to take into consideration when you're taking a photograph is you don't want your horizon in the middle of the frame. Remember the rule of thirds and put your horizon above the center or below. If your foreground is more interesting, then show a bit more of it off and put your horizon higher in the frame. If what's above the horizon is more interesting than what's in the foreground, then give yourself a little bit more of sky or a little more of the mountain, whatever. But don't put your horizon dead center. Adjust it off or down from there, and your composition will look so much better. It just takes a couple of seconds to think about, and even less time to get a straight horizon. Please get a straight horizon. All right, enough of that ranting again. Now we're going to talk about composition and framing. If you're shooting a product or even outdoors, it's what's added to the scene. How are you framing this little piece in? So let's get a better look at framing for a product or a single object. How can we make it better than just taking, say, a picture of this mug by itself? Let's get into it, and here I'm going to use some eggs.
Let's take a photograph of an egg. There's an egg. Now, you can see that is not the most exciting image in the world. What happens if we add another egg? Well, a touch more interesting, but still not very good. So with your framing and composition, you can really up it by adding some elements into the scene. How about we add a butter dish and a knife and have it peeking into the corner? What happens if we put a cutting board up above where the eggs are and a small little frying pan? Now we're creating a little story. How about we bring a little napkin in? Now the focus is still on the eggs, but you can see that this is a whole lot better than just having one or two eggs on the table by itself. We've got a little story happening now, and it all ties in together and creates a lot better image.
As you can see here, by adding in a few elements with the egg, adding another egg, and then adding the rest of the propping, completed the scene and told a story. And I think it told it pretty well. All right, the next topic we're going to be talking about, and I've mentioned it before in previous videos, shot within a shot. Now here's a picture of Niagara Falls. It's not quite your typical picture. Most people intend to include the whole falls where I've got a bit more of a side angle. The point to this is you can see nice shot of the falls, but there's a shot within the shot. What happens if I focus on the bottom of the falls, like in this image? Now it's the same area, the same falls, but I've got two separate looking images from the one. The shot within a shot. You always need to be aware of it. Now how about this little still life setup? Looks okay, but there's another shot within a shot. Check out the lilacs. That is a cool photograph. So it's a shot within a shot. So always be aware of your scenes when you're looking at it to see if there's another shot within it, whether you're taking a wider angle and then you're doing a close-up, or like in that last one, you're doing a scene and then you're doing a macro shot. Shot within a shot can really up your game, and you can get some unusual and creative photos. All right, the next piece we're going to talk about is angles. If you're shooting like an animal, get down on their level. Check out this cute little duck. Oh, isn't that cute? I was laying on my belly taking a picture of that little duck. Now, look at this cute child having a picnic. Again, I'm down at her level. So if you're shooting children, get down on their level. If you're shooting animals, try and get down at their level, and you get a whole different perspective to the image. You can shoot down on them, but you're better if you get down at their level. I think the image has a lot more impact and becomes a lot more interesting. Now also with your angles, again, with this waterfall, I've got kind of almost your standard shot, which most people will take, but then I came to the side of it. Look at the difference between the two. It's the same waterfall, but it's the angle. Try and think outside the box. Don't stand where every other photographer in the world has stood to take that picture. Try and think outside the box, and you can really surprise yourself and others with the amazing cool images you can get from the same spot that they were in. They're going, wow, how come your image is so much cooler? because you took a moment to think about it and you looked at things differently. Angles can make a huge difference to how you perceive that image and the image you can create. I mean, here's just a little clip that I did explaining some of the angles just with that little food setup. So check it out.
Playing with your angles, instead of just taking your standard kind of almost like a 45-degree angle down, what happens if we drop down and do it more of an eye level? What happens if we come up and we do it more like a lay flat? Come up, try different angles, try different approaches. It only takes a few seconds and you may find an award-winning photo hidden in your little scene.
6 great tips that'll really help up your game. Now, if you want to increase your game even more, check out this video and you're gonna find it'll really help up your photo game even more. All right, that's all I got for this one. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe, hit that bell notification so you're aware when I post new videos. If you enjoyed this, please give it a thumbs up. So, until the next time.